My best friend attacked me and tried to kill me because he has feelings for my girlfriend, with whom we have been in a relationship for 5 years. I am 27 years old, and Mark is 26 years old. We became best friends when we were 16. What brought us together was our shared ambition for the same career. After many years of struggle and numerous rejections, my career finally began to take off in the last year, while Mark's situation was not going so well. I spent a lot of time helping him, especially in the last year, trying to support and inspire him. We even lived as neighbors in the same apartment from the age of 20 to 23 and shared everything. However, about 6 months ago, his attitude towards me changed abruptly. He started to mock me and say derogatory things. I tried not to pay attention to such trifles, attributing it to his envy and difficulties, trying to understand his situation. I understood that working in this field is a harsh environment, full of rejections, and seeing a friend suddenly achieve the success you have always dreamed of is not easy. I had a girlfriend, Emily, who is 26 years old. I thought we had an ideal relationship. We had been together for more than 5 years. We had excellent communication, a wonderful, intimate life, and she supported me all these difficult years while I was making my way in the professional world. I always shared everything with her. We had no secrets. And as I thought, we were completely honest with each other. I tried to maintain freshness and brightness in the relationship dates once or twice a week. Surprises, gifts, trips, joint activities like cooking and dance classes. I loved spending time with her, was passionate about her hobbies, and did everything to make her know that she is my main person. And it seemed to me that she felt the same way, even when my career took off. I did not put her or my friends in second place. For my happiness, I needed a balance between work and personal life. Last week, we were visiting our friends, Tom and Katie, who are both 27. They had just recently bought a house. We were sitting in the backyard drinking together with Bill, 26 years old, and Jane, 27 years old. We have been friends for 7 years. While we were chatting, Mark quickly got drunk and spent the whole evening making snide remarks at me. After 6 months of such treatment, I couldn't stand it anymore. The others also told him to tone it down because he was trying to hide his comments under the guise of jokes, but in reality he was behaving rudely and offensively. However, closer to midnight, slightly drunk, I couldn't stand it anymore and told him everything I thought. This escalated into a quarrel. I think all this was due to his envy of my success. I told Mark that it was not my fault that he lacked the talent to achieve success and mentioned everything I had done to help him. Then he attacked me. We tussled a bit. He managed to knock me down a couple of times, kicked me in the ribs, and then tried to step on my head. Fortunately, he didn't hit with full force, but the sole of his boot hit my cheek and slid off. However, it was enough for my cheek to still be swollen. He tried to do it again, but I managed to dodge, and his heel hit with great force just a few centimeters from my face. If he had hit my head, he could have cracked my skull or killed me. And then the other guys intervened. I got up and shouted that he had gone crazy. Mark was already leaving, but he picked up a wooden board that Tom and Katie were using to renovate the fence and build a shed in the garden and again rushed at me, aiming the board at my head. I managed to duck and raise my hand, and he hit my elbow hard. Again, he could have killed me. In a split second, he almost hit Jane when he swung and everything got out of control. Tom and Bill jumped on him and beat him severely, overwhelmed by the rage of what had happened. The girls managed to pull them away from Mark, and realizing what had just happened, everyone was in a state of emotional chaos. Mark sat down, and Emily sat down beside him. His face was bloody, but he was conscious. Katie took Mark to the hospital and returned only in the morning. Mark had a broken nose and a mild concussion. After the doctors treated him, she took Mark to his parents' house. According to her, Mark didn't really talk to her, didn't explain himself, and didn't even apologize. None of us slept that night, and honestly, after such stress, everything became kind of blurry for me. Probably due to a mix of alcohol, shock, and adrenaline. But then, everything got even worse. You probably noticed that I haven't mentioned Emily for a while. We were sitting around, and Tom said something like, "Mark deserved worse than a broken nose for trying to kill you twice and almost harming Jane." Emily, who had been silent until then, suddenly flared up and started defending Mark, saying he didn't deserve all this, and that he was just going through a tough time in his life. Tom and Emily almost had a scandal, after which Emily ran out of the room. I went after her, thinking, okay, we're all in shock and haven't slept, and decided to try to comfort her. I found her in the guest room, where she was crying. I said I understood that we had all been through a shock and maybe we should try to get some sleep. She didn't even look at me, and suddenly I realized that Mark and Emily had been sitting next to each other the previous evening, and it wasn't the first time Mark had shouted at me. Emily was next to him, pulling his hand, begging him to go for a walk with her and calm down not with me after Mark kicked me. Tried to step on my head and swung the board. Her attention was still focused on calming him down while I was lying in pain. She didn't even check on me. When the guys were beating Mark, she was screaming hysterically, trying to pull them away from him. I don't remember her asking if I was okay even once. I asked her, "Are you cheating on me with Mark?" And she started crying hysterically, repeating that she never wanted things to go this far, and I got my answer. I couldn't stand it anymore and started shouting at her, asking what was going on and how she could do this. Then the others came in and the guys took me to another room, trying to calm me down. Jane and Katie took Emily to her parents' house, with Jane staying with her because they were worried about her condition. The whole way in the car, Emily was crying so hard she couldn't speak. When they arrived at her parents' house, Jane and Emily's father helped her up the stairs and put her to bed because she could barely stand, being in hysterics. The only thing she could say her, according to them, scream was that she had ruined everything. Jane stayed with her because her parents were in shock. They had never seen her in such a state. Jane and Katie told them what had happened between Mark and me, and it seemed that everything was due to a romance between Mark and Emily. 5 days have passed. I am still experiencing physical and emotional pain, feeling so much anger and confusion. I have a fractured elbow, a couple of bruised ribs, and the right side of my face is swollen. That night keeps replaying in my head over and over again. I sent Emily several messages asking for explanations, but she didn't respond. And this morning, her mother called me. Honestly, her parents are amazing people. They have always been kind to me and have helped me a lot over the years. She apologized profusely for her daughter and was very understanding. Then she said that Emily wanted to see me and talk and asked if I could come. I agreed. When I arrived, they said they would go outside and wait in the car to give us space, but because of Emily's condition, they didn't want to go too far. I went into the house, and seeing Emily, I experienced a storm of emotions, anger, bitterness, and then I felt sorry for her and just wanted to hug her. She looked terrible. It seemed she hadn't eaten, washed, or slept since that night. It hurt me so much to see her in such a state that I could barely restrain myself from going over and hugging her. Instead, I just sat down opposite her. She said I could ask any questions and she would be honest, and then she started repeating how sorry she was, and that she had ruined the lives of everyone around her. I won't go into too many details to avoid dragging it out, but essentially, a year ago, Mark confessed his love to Emily, and since then he has been very persistent. She said she made it clear that the feelings were not mutual. I asked why she didn't come to me, and she replied that she didn't want to ruin our friendship and hoped to sort it all out. In the last few months, he became more aggressive, asking her to leave me for him. I asked if there was anything between them, and she admitted that they kissed twice, and both times Mark was the initiator, but she stopped him. Once they were watching a movie together and cuddling when Mark tried to initiate intimacy, but she left and set clear boundaries. I asked why she continued to meet him alone if he was constantly trying to kiss her and persuade her into intimacy. She said he promised each time that he wouldn't do it again. I asked why she didn't stop the communication, why she continued to respond to his messages, meet with him, give him false hopes, and whether she just liked the attention. Then she said something strange, that she felt sorry for him, that she felt responsible for him like an older sister. What the hell? She wanted to help him get through a difficult period in his life. Moreover, she even tried to set him up with a friend of hers, but he ruined it with his disgusting behavior. I asked if she was so stupid as to not understand that her behavior was only fueling his hopes and feelings. She cried even harder, insisting that they had a brother-sister relationship and that she just wanted to fix everything and that Mark was having a hard time and she was trying to help him get back on his feet. But he became more and more insistent and started speaking badly of me, claiming that I didn't deserve her. She said she was sorry about everything, called herself stupid, and added that she had ruined everything and made everything the worst way possible. But she acted with good intentions, not realizing that she was only making the situation worse. Then I asked if she had been in contact with him after that night, and she made an awkward pause and then cried even harder and admitted that she had. This destroyed me completely. This man had been trying to win her over for years, had tried to kill me, and I waited 5 days for her to respond, only to find out that she had been in contact with him. I couldn't say anything. I just wanted to hurt her not physically, but emotionally. so I decided to just get up and leave. She begged me to stay, offered to show me the message, assured me that she just wanted to know how he was, and then explained that it was all over and that he was not to bother her anymore. But for me, she had already made her choice. While I was living through the worst moment of my life, she still chose to communicate with him. I walked out, and Emily followed me. And I'm not proud of this, but her mom and dad got out of the car and asked if everything was okay. Then I lost it. I shouted with profanity that their daughter had ruined my life. How could she choose a person who tried to split my head open over me? I was so angry that I couldn't even sit behind the wheel. So I just walked away. I don't know how long I walked, but Emily's father drove up to me and told me to get in the car. I got in, expecting him to shout at me or condemn me, but bless his heart, he just drove me home. We didn't talk the whole way, but when he stopped at my house, he put his hand on my shoulder. I couldn't even look him in the eye after everything I had said. Emily sent me screenshots of her correspondence with Mark, which seems to confirm her words that she just asked how he was and then said she couldn't continue the contact. She also added that she would never forgive him for attacking me. She sent other screenshots of their previous conversations, mostly where she asked him to stop, said she didn't have feelings for him, and rejected his courtship. But given that they had been in contact for more than a year, she could have selected the parts of the correspondence that put her in the best light and left the others out of the frame. I haven't responded yet and probably won't. I want to block her, but for some reason, I can't do it yet. I feel betrayed, angry, and like a terrible person. I want to hurt Emily and Mark, to make them feel the same pain I am experiencing. I know these are unhealthy feelings. I hope that just by writing all this on the internet, even if no one reads it, I can start to sort out what the hell happened and how my life went from a state close to ideal to a state where I feel like I will never be happy again. The pain seems like it will never go away. How can one even deal with this? I feel like I have lost everything. The people I loved with all my heart now only arouse hatred in me. I know Emily said she didn't cheat in the sense of physical intimacy, which I doubt because I'm not a fool. Even if there was no intimacy, she still betrayed me, as did Mark. I don't think I will ever be able to forgive them. I can't imagine a moment when I would even consider trying to. So if any of you have ever experienced betrayal by a partner, a friend, or both, what should I do next? Where do I start to stop thinking about it constantly and try to start living my life again? Update. I need your advice again on what to do next. Many of you have asked for an update on the whole story, and I will try to tell it, but without going into too much detail to avoid dragging out the main question on which I need advice at the end. Mark. Many of you said I should file a complaint with the police. I don't know, maybe it's because many of you are Americans and too trusting in the justice system, or maybe you've watched too many legal dramas. It doesn't work that way here. I consulted with 2 lawyers, and the conclusion is that I can file a complaint, but the likelihood of Mark going to jail is extremely low. The most likely outcome is that he will have to pay legal costs and compensate me, possibly a significant amount, or maybe a small one because I didn't suffer serious injuries. My friends could confirm his attack, but the judge will most likely make a decision based on the actual damage. Perhaps he would get probation, but he wouldn't go to jail. So yes, I could ruin him financially, but he could file a counterclaim against Tom and Bill. For them, the likelihood of serious consequences is higher because they broke his nose, and Mark has a concussion. The court case could drag on for months or even years, and I just want it all to end. Mark's reputation has already suffered. He has lost some friends, and others have decided to remain neutral. His older brother said that he and his parents expressed disappointment in Mark, but nothing more. The younger sister took it hard. She used to joke that she considered me her older brother. She also admired Emily, so she stopped communicating with Mark. He sent me a long letter of apology, but he didn't mention Emily at all, only his behavior towards me and the attack. The apologies seemed sincere. He took responsibility for many of his actions, but some of it he still blamed on his mental health problems. I didn't respond to him and don't plan to. Jane and Katie. Some of you suggested that Jane and Katie knew more than they let on or supported Emily, so I decided to pretend I didn't notice and asked if they had seen any alarming signs in Mark and Emily's relationship. Yes, they knew he had kissed Emily, but they claim they didn't know the extent of the problem. They said they only knew that Mark and Emily were spending time together, and that Emily told them he had kissed her, but she assured them that she had dealt with it. I didn't really believe that was all they knew, especially after Jane started to get defensive when I asked her more questions. This caused a chain reaction because Tom got angry at her for hiding it and began to suspect that she was hiding something else, which brought discord into their relationship. I try not to interfere, but I told Tom not to be angry with her because of me. Katie came to my house to talk to me herself. She said she really didn't know anything. She just accidentally overheard a conversation about Mark and Emily. Later, when she asked Jane, she said that Emily had taken care of it. Katie swears she took it as if Emily had told me everything, and that was all she knew. I believe her. She looks sincere and apologetic, unlike Jane. I don't hate Jane or blame her, but I am disappointed in her behavior. So I have stopped communicating with her in recent weeks because I just don't feel the need for it. This has slightly affected my friendship with Tom because I started spending time with other people. Emily, where to start? Many of you advised me to stop any communication with her, but I know myself. I would go crazy if I couldn't talk and understand what the hell happened. One person wrote to me that their approach to solving problems is face-to-face, and this approach appeals to me more than a complete break in the relationship. Although I planned to stop communicating after our last meeting, I also needed to apologize to Emily's parents and pick up the car parked outside their house. So, 4 days after that incident, I called them and asked for permission to come and talk to them and meet with Emily. They were even glad. I got the impression that they thought I was planning to forgive her or something like that. I arrived, we talked, I apologized. They said they were disappointed and shocked that I had shouted at them and said such hurtful things, but they understood that I was experiencing strong emotions and was in a bad state. We hugged, after which they went back into the house, and I stayed in the living room where Emily was waiting for me. She came up to me with the saddest expression I had ever seen and asked for a hug. I refused and asked her to sit down and talk. I asked her to tell everything again and asked if Mark was in some way abusive, as Jane and Katie had mentioned. She repeated what she had said before but added a few details. She said she hadn't fully realized the situation at the time. She thought the responsibility for everything lay with her. But the reason she couldn't tell me everything for a whole year was Mark. He threatened to tell me himself about the kisses, that they were in love, that she was cheating on me. When she tried to stop the communication, he said he would do it, and that would destroy our relationship and my friendship with him. He assured me that I would believe him and not her. She felt cornered, forced to solve everything on her own. I asked if he was physically cruel to her. She hesitated and said not exactly, but twice he hurt her. Once at an event where we were together, he took her aside and asked if she really didn't love him. And when she said no and tried to leave, he grabbed her wrist, wouldn't let go, and pulled her closer, causing her pain. I remembered that night. Somewhere in the middle of the evening, Emily became quiet and distracted, but she told me she was just tired. The second case was similar, but they were alone, and he squeezed her biceps so hard that it left bruises, but I don't remember her having bruises. I would have noticed and asked about it. Perhaps she hid them from me. I also asked if there really was no intimacy. His intentions were obvious, so why did she continue to put herself in such a situation? She just said she didn't know, that she was stupid, but there was never any intimacy between them. I asked why he had such power over her that she couldn't find the strength to tell me everything for a whole year, why she believed that I would believe him and not her. She said again that she didn't know, that she just kept making mistakes. I asked why she ignored me after Mark attacked me but continued to communicate with him. She cried and continued to say that she didn't know. She thought our relationship was strong enough to survive this, and that she was more worried about what Mark would do. I told her that this was what caused me the most pain. She was more worried about him than about me. For me, this meant that she had chosen him. She exploded that she hadn't chosen him, but I firmly stood my ground. For me, it looked exactly like that. Then I explained to her how much they both hurt me, that all trust was lost, and that our relationship was over. I said I wouldn't contact them anymore. She asked if there might be a moment in the future when we could be part of each other's lives. I answered no, but something was bothering me because there were too many questionable points in her story. So I decided to contact Sarah, Emily's best friend, and told her that I was completely broken, feeling like no one around me was telling the truth, and I begged her to be honest. To my surprise, she answered. It turned out she knew much of it, but Emily had kept her in the dark on many issues. She knew about Mark and said she had asked Emily to stop communicating with him and to tell me about his behavior. She knew about their kisses and said that Emily regretted it and stopped everything before it went further. Sarah told me that at the beginning of all this, Emily felt needed. She liked the dynamic in our relationship when I needed her support, especially when things weren't going well for me at work and I was facing rejections. This doesn't mean I constantly cried on her shoulder or relied on her money, but in many cases, she became my support, lifting my spirits, hugging, motivating, making me believe in myself and continue to move forward. And when my career took off, that dynamic disappeared, and then Mark was in the same position I was in before, which allowed Emily to feel needed and valuable again. I was shocked. Sarah said she was also stunned when she learned about this. I asked if Emily felt needed because Mark wanted her. Sarah replied that Emily never talked about it, but knowing her for 20 years, she suspected that this also played a role. Then I asked the question I feared most. Maybe I was naive, thinking I was a good guy. Could Emily have spoken badly about me and I myself pushed her towards Mark? Sarah answered that it wasn't exactly like that. Emily always said she loved me, often said how happy she was and how I made her feel special. Sometimes Sarah almost envied her. The truth is, in rare moments, Emily said I could be overly controlling, obsessive, and sometimes closed off or act selfishly, but nothing more serious. Since then, I noticed that Sarah started showing interest in me. She writes to me every day. At first, she asked how I was doing, how I was feeling. Then she started sending memes, then memes with a light, intimate undertone, but I have no interest in her. So I think I'll have to stop this, so she doesn't think I'm encouraging her. Back to the communication from Emily. I blocked her on all apps and social networks. We always communicated through them, but we rarely used phone numbers. Maybe I just forgot about the phone number, or subconsciously didn't do it. She wrote, "How are you?" And then said she smiled and laughed, for the first time in a long time thanks to me, attached a photo with my image on her television, and wrote how proud she is of me and looks forward to my career growth. I work in the entertainment industry. My big break happened last year when I was working behind the scenes and then started appearing in front of the camera. Of course, I'm not a star, but it's a small show that's gradually gaining popularity. I made a mistake and answered. We communicated for 2 days. Not about us, but about the political situation in the country. I kept my distance. If she wrote, I only answered when I had the time or desire. Then she asked if she could be part of my life again, even in some small way in the future. I said I needed more time, but it was unlikely, and added that I couldn't continue our communication for my mental health. I said goodbye and blocked her. When I thought everything was over, last Friday around midnight, there was a knock on the door. Emily was standing there, soaked to the skin in the rain, as if in some scene from a movie. I asked what the hell she was doing here. She said she had been in a bar drinking and wanted to see me but lost her courage as soon as she got out of the taxi. She stood on the street for 10 minutes, but it got too cold to wait for another taxi. I let her in, gave her old sweatpants, a t-shirt, and a hoodie, and put her wet clothes in a bag. She told me that her friends insisted she go with them to a bachelorette party, although she felt she wasn't ready, but she went anyway. They drank, and she ordered her favorite cocktail that we used to drink together, but we spent the time separately. We had a habit of texting each other all evening, sending funny stories, joking about what was happening, or sending each other photos of our drinks. We were that couple who was constantly on the phone, communicating with each other. So she reached for her phone to send me a photo out of habit, but suddenly realized she would never be able to do that again and felt a wave of sadness. She had another drink, and then, despite telling her friends she didn't want to meet men, they still invited some guys. One of them was told that Emily was free, and he started flirting and trying to get her attention. The friends deliberately created situations to leave them alone, and she couldn't take it anymore. She also said the guy was boring, uninteresting, pathetic, and unattractive. Emily rarely speaks so harshly about people, and then I realized she was in a state between light and medium intoxication. Usually, in this state, she is cheerful and talkative, but this time she was completely cold and detached, not once looking me in the eye. Unlike our last meeting, when her gaze was full of regret and sadness. She even spoke almost monotonously, which I had never seen before. She was a completely different Emily. I was tired and confused. My thoughts seemed to shut down. She just sat and didn't say anything. I opened the taxi app to call her a cab, but after 15 minutes the app was still searching for a car. Then I thought, the hell with it, and offered to drive her home because I didn't think it was a good idea to leave her at my place. I suspected that this was her plan, but I wanted to call her bluff. However, she just took her things and walked to my car without objections or explanations. In the car, the atmosphere was just as detached. Emily asked me to choose the music. I agreed. Then she asked if she could hold my hand for the last time. Fool that I am, I said yes. She just sat there, looking out the window, not once looking at me. Her behavior confused me, and trying to lighten the mood, I awkwardly joked that I could take her back to her friends if Mr. Pathetic was still there. She just shrugged and said that she was done with men forever, that they only deceived her, destroyed her trust, manipulated her emotions and kindness, and put her in no-win situations. I didn't know if this was directed at me, Mark, or both of us. I asked why she thought that, and she shrugged again and said seriously. She also told me that Mark had sent her a letter proposing that she move with him to another country, but she threw it away. Then we just drove in silence. When we arrived at her parents' house, I felt her squeeze my hand as if she didn't want to let go. When I stopped, she didn't say anything, just got out of the car without even looking at me and went inside. When I got home, of course, I found her underwear in the bathroom, but not in the laundry basket, but next to it where clothes often fall. Common sense suggests that she left it on purpose, because she knows where clothes sometimes fall. But now it's another thing that I ruminate on, adding to my doubts. Now I have her underwear, and she has my clothes, a perfect reason to see each other again. I was completely confused and a bit frightened by Emily's state that night. I even thought she might have been on something because she was so unlike herself. I thought about asking Sarah about it, but I decided not to put her in a position where she might be dragged this story, as I was. I was so naive that I unblocked Emily everywhere because I truly believed she would write to me to apologize for coming to me drunk. Emily definitely would have done that before. I also noticed that she had significantly changed her Instagram, removed the profile description, and deleted almost all photos. Her account used to be cute and original, but now only 2 old photos remain, and all photos with other people and almost all photos with me have been removed, except for one where we are together on vacation 2 years ago. We both called that vacation the happiest time in our lives. It seemed like I started to move forward a bit, but now I can't stop thinking about her. But the truth is, I really miss Emily. She is a truly unique person. I always realized how lucky I was to have her in my life. And despite the fact that I hated her and felt resentment towards her for the whole month, seeing her on Friday and remembering how she cried at her parents' house, I realized that I hate seeing her in such a state. At one time, I thought her suffering would bring me satisfaction, but now I am more concerned about her than angry. I admit that when Emily squeezed my hand in the car, I felt butterflies in my stomach, remembering our happy moments. And then I felt anxious. I don't want her to destroy herself and suffer from guilt for the rest of her life. We are all human. We make mistakes. I am inclined to believe that Mark was abusive, which even makes me consider the option of suing him to punish him for what he did to Emily, and she felt cornered because of his threats and fear of losing everything. But on the other hand, when the situation escalated, she comforted him, not me. I keep going over this again and again, and her visit on Friday seems a bit manipulative to me coming soaked to the skin, leaving her underwear, behaving so strangely. But sometimes for a few minutes, I don't care, and I just want Emily to be part of my life again as my girlfriend. I'm confused. Should I stop communication, be strong, and move on? Or contact her, honestly discuss everything, try to work on the relationship, and see if we have a chance? Or should I rise above all this, meet with her to end everything once and for all, while slightly softening her guilt so she doesn't destroy herself because of it, even if it requires me to lie or minimize how she hurt me? As you can see, I am completely confused and bewildered. I hope, as in the past, someone will come up with advice that will help me understand how to do the right thing. Well, that's where the story ends. I understand you'd like to hear the continuation of what happened, but unfortunately, that's it. Apparently, the author made the right decisions for himself and didn't see the need to write any additional updates. Be sure to write in the comments what you think about the whole story. For me, the situation is extremely confusing. I can't conclude whether she really cheated or not, but it seems to me that she did. Again, I don't know if I would return to her if I were the author. I think the author returned. Why? Because he started praising her there, as we usually do when we like a girl and our hormones make us do all this. We can't objectively evaluate the situation, but in reality, it would probably be better to break up with her. It's a very murky story because indeed, why did she defend Mark and not him? Okay, she defended even Mark, but in the end, she could at least have asked about the health of her boyfriend. So yes, the situation is extremely murky. It would have been possible to ask Mark about what exactly happened, to hear his version of events, but again, would he have told the truth? He might have spitefully said, "Yes, we had a great time, and she was cheating on you all the time." And what would that have given? It would only have confused the situation even more. But on the other hand, he might have provided some evidence, which also wouldn't have been bad. In general, be sure to write your opinion in the comments. Do you agree with me? Also, watch our previous video, which you will see here. And good luck to you.